If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
Hey. And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former writer, full-time observer, joined at the bell tonight by one Mr. Randy Gordon of New York. All I can say is for a title, you guys that watch know he has no title. It's Mr. Everything. So how are you, Mr. Everything?
I'm doing great. I mean,
you scared me for a second. You made me wait till the last second.
It's funny. I went out to dinner with my wife, not anticipating typical Long Island traffic coming back. And what normally would be about a 6-minute ride took about a 25-minute. I'm like, oh my God, what am I? Well, here we are.
I wasn't worried, Randy. I knew you'd be here because we talked, and you probably before we get into what we're going to talk about, and we're going to go heavy tonight on Crawford and Canelo. We're going to look back at Usyk and Dubois, and then whatever else comes up, because Randy and I, we just bounce off on everything. We don't really need a menu. But, Jack and I talk about this sometimes. I've never spoken to Russell about it, but you are one of the few old school guys who is every bit enthused about discussing this sport as anybody I know. I know that my interest and want has waned, and I know Mr. Peltz, Mr. Happy, he hates everything about it today, but he tries to keep his nose in it because he made a career out of it. Jack is somewhere between me and you, not as enthused as you, but more enthused than me. What drives you? Why the enthusiasm still there?
You know what? That's a great question, and you're not the only one who's asked me that. But anybody who saw my induction at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, I said something that I've never said before. All 5 of my kids were sitting with my wife, and they never heard the story that I told. And the story was about a 10-year-old boy. And the 10-year-old boy taught me so much about life, about believing in yourself, because this 10-year-old boy was burned severely on his right leg. And doctors said he'd never live. And he didn't believe when he overheard them saying that he's not going to make it. And then when it was realized that he would make it, they told him he would never, ever walk again. And then one day, his father, it was during his 11th birthday, his mother and father took him and his brother out for dinner. And when they came back from dinner, they pushed him in his wheelchair in front of the television and said, hey, let's see what's on. And a boxing match happened to be on. Well, the kid so loved what he saw with these 2 guys getting up and dancing around and moving, something that he couldn't do. And he became immersed with boxing. And it was through boxing, he actually pushed himself out of his wheelchair and began to walk again for the first time, doing something that doctors said he'd never do. And the doctor said, well, you're never going to walk perfectly. You're certainly never going to run again. Well, the kid did walk. The kid did run. And even today, at this age, I could outrun most guys. You see, I was that 10-year-old.
I knew you were talking about. I knew that story was about you. I had a feeling.
Boxing became so attached to me because of that. And I love it as much now as I did then. I could watch a 4-round fight. I could watch nondescript guys you've never heard of fighting. I watch everything that's on television. Everything. I sometimes during time, my wife might say, "We're going out in a little while. Get ready in a half hour. We're leaving." And I'll be sitting there watching YouTube of fights that most people won't even watch, stuff that just happened on the Zone or whatever. I am as thrilled with the sport now. Look, the business of boxing has always been the business of boxing. But now
Right.
with this new league that's coming in, and I think it's going to affect a lot of people in certain ways, but I think overall, the new TKO league, this Zuffa boxing, I think is going to be very good for boxing.
All right. I want you to touch on that quickly, but tell me this. I need to know this now because I didn't know that story. Who were you watching fight? Who was fighting when you were 10 in front of the TV?
When I was 10 years old, on my birthday, it was Emil Griffith and Denny Moyer. And little did I know that down the road, Denny Moyer would become a friend of mine. Emil Griffith would become one of my best friends. He would train Bone Crusher Smith, whom I managed to the heavyweight championship of the world. Emil became my trainer. So I'm sitting there at 10 years old watching these guys go at it, never realizing how immersed in the sport I would be. So yeah, that Emil Griffith, Denny Moyer fight, which was won by Griffith on decision, has just stayed with me forever.
Now, I trained with Bone Crusher Smith for a while at Frazier's Gym in the late 70s. We had Bone Crusher on about 2 months ago, Jack and I. And Emil Griffith is one of my favorites. And I think he's a top 6, 7 all-time great welterweight.
Oh, there's no question about it. What Emil brought to the table, and he was never the same fighter again
After Brett.
Benny Kid Brett fight. He just didn't have that's something inside of him to pull the trigger. And his manager, Gil Clancy, knew that. But still, Emil was so loaded with talent that he was able to do what he could to move around and really not hurt anybody. He was a great fighter.
I'll give you one of my all-time favorite hypothetical matchups, and it involves Emil Griffith. But I'm going to see if you can guess it. He was a welterweight champion. Started out a little lower than that. He fought middleweights. He fought some big lightweights. Made his mark as a welterweight.
Sugar Ray Leonard?
And he was never stopped.
Sugar Ray Leonard was stopped.
If I tell you when he fought, you'll get it. All right. He was never stopped. He was only down 3 times. And he could fight his rear end off.
Wow. He was never stopped.
Kid Gavilan.
The Kid. That's right. The Kid.
I would love to see a Griffith Gavilan fight because I know one thing. Neither guy's going to stop the other guy. Gavilan might be a little quicker. I think Emil's a little stronger. I would love to have seen that fight. If we could make, in a time machine and bring him back, that would be one of my favorites.
That would have been an incredible fight. But I think that Emil was an all-time great who could have gotten in there with anybody. Because, again, remember, after that March 24th, 1962 fight against Benny Kid Paret, we never saw 100% of Emil again. That was it. We saw 90 some odd percent, maybe even very close to 100, but we never saw 100% of Emil Griffith. And to think that he did all that he did against the guys he was in with.
Oh, when you look at his record, it's who's
Oh
who.
my God. Yeah.
And sadly, again, like you said, we didn't see the best of him after Perret. What a lot of people forget is how fast his hands were during his prime.
Yeah.
And you know what? Randy, because of Emil Griffith being born, he kind of overshadowed another guy whose record is almost identical to his. They fought 4 times. Griffith won 3. You can make a case they're 2-2, but because of Griffith, Luis Rodriguez, when you think of him, Randy, you realize he was only the champ for 60 days?
Luis Rodriguez, there we go. With the flattest nose I've ever seen.
Right. And I think it's criminal the fact that Rodriguez gets overlooked so much because of the fact you look at him, he didn't have any title defenses, won it from Griffith, lost it back, and then lost trying to get it back again. And it's just like, you look at their records, it's like they're identical.
Yes. And I mean, they were very similar fighters too, because Emil was that kind of move, combination, set everything up with the left jab. And Luis Rodriguez was much the same kind of fighter. So I think if they fought 10 times, every one would have been a decision. Nobody would have stopped the other guy. But I remember watching each and every one of those fights, like on the Friday night fights back in the 60s.
Right.
So, while we're on, just watching the boxing, I've got to, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on something very quickly here, very sadly. You and I have been ringside for guys getting carried out of the ring, maybe even getting killed in the ring. I was ringside for the Raymond Mancini Dooku Kim fight and a number of other tragic fights. But something happened August 2nd in Japan that is just, it's never happened before on one card put on by Mr. Honda, who is the biggest promoter over in Japan. Has nothing. This guy is just a total, everybody respects and loves this guy. He put on this show where 2 fighters, one went 12 rounds, fought to a draw, and right as the draw was being announced, the guy kind of put his right hand to his head, and he told his corner people that he wasn't feeling well. They took him to the dressing room where he collapsed. They brought him to the hospital where he passed away this past Friday. A little bit later on the card, another fighter got knocked out in around the 7th round. Both of these guys were 130 pounds. Ironically, they fought each other about 17, 18 months ago. And there was a winner there. There was a knockout there. But it turned out that they both lost the other night. One guy died on Friday. One guy died on Saturday. And
I did not know that 2 guys died, Randy.
Both of them died.
I did not know that.
It has been, yes, the news really has been breaking today in boxing. And I just wanted to.
So it wasn't a case of a mismatch, guys being mismatched. No. And how about the weight cutting? Did anybody have trouble getting down the weight?
We don't know.
Because I always go to that.
All of that is under investigation right now. And I don't know if you know the name. He's one of the best known boxing figures in Japan. His name is Joe Koizumi.
No.
Joe Koizumi was my correspondent when I was the editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine back in the 80s. And Joe and I have remained friends over the years. And of course, back in the 80s, we used to write letters to each other. Now we could send emails. And only this morning, I sent an email to Joe Koizumi. And I asked him, can you please tell me, Joe, and I said, my condolences to 2 guys that I'm sure you knew very well, and to all of us in boxing, because we suffered those two losses. Can you tell me the protocols of what goes on in Japan? Do they require head tests? And just as I got home and I was rushing to get on here with you, apparently there is a return email from Joe Koizumi with all the medical requirements, of which I'm pretty sure that I might be the only one around who has these medical requirements of the JBC, the Japanese
Right.
Boxing Commission. So we don't know what those requirements were. If either guy had to do a lot of weight cutting, what it was. Now, let me ask you about weight cutting. You fought. You had to make weight. What is a light heavyweight?
Middleweight.
Middleweight. Okay, so
I was a middleweight.
you know what it's like to, you might have been started training at 180 pounds or something like that, and what it was like that final week. You got to lose 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds, whatever it was. And many guys have to lose more than that, and they really kill themselves to get down to weight. I say if a guy has to do that, to really struggle to get down to weight, he doesn't belong at that weight.
It's probably one of the most undercovered issues
Yes.
of boxing is that weight cut. And I get so mad and frustrated when I hear guys say, well, there's a rehydration clause. So if they weigh on Friday night and they fight 10 o'clock Saturday night, he gained weight back. But all that is water. The damage is done the week to 10 days before that, where you're suffering and depleting your body and draining everything from it. And you can't undo that in a day with water. And when I hear guys talk about that, just like in the Mayweather Canelo fight, they fought at 152. Did you ever see a picture of that weigh-in? Canelo and Mayweather. Canelo looks half as big as Mayweather.
Yes.
And he looks like, he looks like skin and bones. And everybody says, well, it's only 2 pounds. And I would say Canelo had death and taxes getting down to 154. Now you're telling him to come down to 152, which means he actually has to be 151 and change. Don't tell me that doesn't affect the outcome. And isn't it funny how whenever guys move up and they force the bigger guy down, the guy who comes down usually loses. It is the biggest and easiest way to win a fight without paying somebody off or paying the judges off. If you can beat the guy on the scale and get him to come down, you are so far ahead. And most casual fans don't understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. If I recall in the very early days that Terence Crawford was talking about Canelo, remember, Terence Crawford was 147 pounds. Then he decides he's going to move up. And then we were hearing that he was asking Canelo to come down, maybe drop to middleweight. But the fact is, Canelo, as much as he really wants the fight, he said, I am strong and comfortable at 168. I don't walk around at 190 and have to cut down to 168. I might walk around at 175, 180, and it's easy to cut those 12 pounds in a few months of training camp. So he basically said, no, if you want to fight me, you are going to have to come up. Now, for Terence Crawford, that was pretty easy because even though he was fighting at 147 pounds, you got to remember, he was walking around between fights. And this is a guy who doesn't fight more than once or twice a year. He was walking around not at 147 and 150. He was walking around at about 162, 63. He's going to be
even heavier than that.
Oh, easy. I saw him one time at a fight card in Vegas, and I had to guess his weight at 170 something. So you know what? He trained different, did a more strength training. I don't think he's really going to lose anything. I am not ready for my pick yet, but I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight with Terence Crawford moving up almost in a win-win situation for him.
if we take the weight issue out of it for a second, and we can't, and we're not going to, but we're going to do that for a second. I don't think there's any doubt that Crawford is clearly the better fighter.
Yeah.
Has more tools, can do more. The biggest question is the extra weight. I think he's going to come in about 165. Is it going to slow him down? That's the thing. And with me, if it slows him down, then he has a problem. But if Crawford can be the same fighter he was for Earl Spence, only at 165, and he can get that up, Canelo's an ex-champ, in my opinion.
That could very well be.
There are two huge ifs, though, that we can't answer.
Well,
we can speculate, but we can't. We won't know till the fight.
Let's talk about that Errol Spence fight for a moment, because everybody, I think, is in agreement that that was Terence Crawford's finest moment. What he didn't go out there and win a close decision. It went to the cards, and we were screaming robbery. After a first round where Crawford took a nice look at Spence, who is a very smart, high IQ fighter. After Crawford took a look at him for one round,
he dismantled him.
Totally. And totally, completely, thoroughly. It was one of the biggest beatdowns that I can ever remember.
I compare it to Secretariat at the Belmont. The longer the race went, the bigger the gap was. Yeah. And with each ensuing round, Crawford put more distance between them. But I think he was hurt by that, Randy, and I'll tell you why. Because it was so one-sided and overwhelming, people are left to say, well, Crawford can't be that good. So either Spence came into the ring damaged, or he wasn't as good as we thought. That's why I always say, in a big fight, the best way to win is not doing what Tyson did to Spinks. It's more or less the way that Sugar Ray Leonard against Hearns. Hearns had his way with Leonard early in that fight for 5 or 6 rounds. So we knew Hearns was a real deal. And then Leonard rallied back and had to overcome that. So even though Leonard won and was a little better that night, they both were raised. The same thing would say the first Ali Frazier fight or the first Leonard Duran fight. You can't say, well, Leonard really wasn't that good, because he almost beat Duran. And we know how good Duran was because nobody did to Leonard what he did. I think Crawford won it too easy. And I think over the last 50 years, that might be one of the most marquee performances between what was supposed to be the two best guys in the weight class.
Exactly. Going into that fight, think about it. All of us who were watching, we weren't saying this is going to be Spence easy or Crawford.
Randy, some of our friends wouldn't even make a pick. They thought it was so close.
You know, and it's funny because I know a lot of people who are picking Spence, and then afterwards, you know, this is why sometimes you got to get things in writing, because I never picked Spence. I was picking Crawford. Get out of here. You were picking Spence. But that's how even that fight was. And what Crawford did, just like you said, I mean, it was truly amazing. So if it's that fighter and he can keep all those skills that we saw that night, along with the maybe 15 extra pounds, 20 extra pounds, there could be a major legacy upset.
If Crawford wins that fight, you could make a case that it's the best win since Leonard beat Hagler, maybe.
And yes, I mean, let's see how the fight goes. I mean, is it going to be a close decision? Is it going to be one of these, you know, like Triple G against Canelo, where, oh, come on, Triple G won the fight for whatever first one. I don't care which fight you pick. And if you do look at Canelo against Triple G, I mean, the fact is Canelo is beatable, and he pulls out these victories.
That's why
against
Go ahead.
Mayweather, he wasn't ready at that point in his
No,
career.
no way. And that's why Floyd fought him, because he knew. Let me get that. That would have been like Larry Holmes picking on Mike Tyson after his 10th fight. Here, I'll give you a shot. And then he could say he beat him, and then Tyson would go on and have that great career, and he'd be the only one to beat him.
Yeah.
But I think, and I think I said this to Jack, I don't know if I said it on the air, but Randy, I think there's monumental pressure on Canelo, because if he loses this fight, all of our buddies and pundits are going to go back and they're going to go look at his record and they're going to say, well, let's see, who are the best guys he fought? Triple G. Everybody thinks he lost the first fight.
Yeah.
Mayweather is on that list. He clearly beat him. And Bivol clearly beat him. And then you could go back to maybe as Landry Lara may have beaten him. So they're going to look at Canelo's record. They're going to say, okay, Mayweather, Bivol, Golovkin, Crawford are the 4 best guys he's fought, and you can make a case he's 0-4. Maybe this guy isn't that great, and we go back and have to look at his record and say, oh, when did he fight these guys? All past their prime. So I think there's a ton of credit on Canelo. I know he hasn't looked spectacular lately, but I think he's going to bring his A game, because if he beats Crawford and it's not a bad decision, and God forbid he stopped them, he could say, look, I don't want to hear nothing. And some people think this is the best fighter in boxing, and I just took him apart.
Well, that's why I say it's a win-win for Crawford, because let's say he just doesn't have the physical strength to deal, or the punching power, and Canelo should walk through him, which I don't see happening, but let's just say, well, Crawford, his fans will say, look, he was moving up all these weight divisions. And of course, I mean, he was in against a guy way too big. I just think it's a win-win situation. And of course, you know, if he does come away with a decision win, or pulls off, let's say he cuts him, beats him up, stops him.
Oh, that would shock the boxing world.
Now, of course it would. Now you might think, well, will there be a rematch clause? Because of course, we know that Crawford always was looking for a major, major payday, and he is going to get a major, major payday for this one. Would there be a rematch 5-6 months down the road? I would say that if Crawford wins in such impressive fashion, it's up to him whether he would want to do the rematch, take in another 50, 60, $80 million, maybe more. And I don't see why anybody would want to turn that down. But let's just say he pulls off this incredible upset and then surprises us all and says, night, everybody. That's it.
I can't see that happening.
No, we
because
can't.
If he wins the fight, he's really playing with house money in the rematch. But
of course,
you don't know. But here, and that's what scares me. That's a good point. If it's close, and Jack and I argue about this, and I think even you and I have had disagreements on this. But as far as I'm concerned, going into that fight right now, Canelo's up 3-0, because if Crawford wins, he might do what you just said, or under the best case scenario, he'll fight Canelo again. Then what? He's not going to stay at 168. Maybe he drops, but my point is it's better for business if Canelo wins, because there are so many more possibilities. And even if Canelo wins a close fight, why wouldn't he give Crawford a rematch? He beat him. It'll be a ton of money. There'll be interest in it. And he can afford fighting some of those bigger guys that are calling for him.
I mean, could you see, let's say Crawford wins the fight, could you see a surprise, a Jaron Ennis, who just entered the 154-pound division? Could you see a Jaron Ennis all of a sudden saying, guess what? I'll face you. I'll come in at whatever, 160, 62, whatever. I mean, do you think
I don't think we'll never see Crawford in Ennis fight.
No.
Because in Crawford's mind, he is on that path where I'm only going to fight somebody where I have something to gain. If he takes apart Jaron Ennis, he gains nothing.
Well, who could possibly? I mean, That division is just loaded with killers from Sergei Bohachuk and Diego Pacheco. Um, and there's this guy who lives over in Germany, Osleas Iglesias, who's a monster. So I don't. None of them. They're all interesting fights, but I don't think they really mean anything for Terrence. So
No.
unless Terrence gets a rematch, if he wins the fight and a rematch is agreed upon, then I think it could be very interesting, depending upon on how the fight went, how it ended.
Just
But
can you imagine? Let's just say, everybody accepts that Canelo's the bigger puncher, which he is,
right.
and he's got the steel chin.
Mhm.
But could you imagine if somehow Crawford just caught him with one of those shots because
No,
everybody has a switch,
I
one of
think
those shots, and doesn't knock him out, but really hurts him. He gets up, he goes and he flurries, and they have to stop the fight, and he wins by a stoppage. Could you imagine that? That would turn boxing on its ear, and there's a lot of people out there would be very upset that
you know,
happened.
as you're saying that, I'm trying to picture the flurries coming and everything. And I'm trying to picture it, and it's very, very difficult for me to do that. Look, we've seen Crawford win fights with body shots at 140 pounds, 147. He'll throw a combination, rip the guy to the body. The guy goes down. Can you see Canelo dropping from a Crawford body shot? It's something I can't picture. But
No, but how many times have we seen Canelo hitting the body though? Do we really know how he takes it down there? Everybody headhunts when they fight him.
yeah, um, that's what's going to make this so interesting to see. A, how the first round starts off. Is it a slow first round? Do they really take a look at each other? Because the longer I think that Crawford looks at you, he is a brilliant fighter. You talk about high boxing IQs. He can
Absolutely.
look at you, and every little move you make, he dissects that. He just puts it through that boxing brain of his, and he said, okay, when he does this, he's gonna now bend this way, throw a right hand. He's gonna bend this way, come down with a body shot, whatever. He knows instantly where you're going. He's brilliant. I want to see how the fight's going to start. Is he going to take a look in that first round? Maybe even take a look in the second round and then start to go to work? Is Canelo going to pour pressure on? Is he going to be willing to walk into those perhaps faster hands of Crawford? I think this fight has
If
many, many
Crawford
different
can
twists.
can take it and he doesn't come undone and he can afford to take chances and he can hold up to the battering or whatever Canelo sends his way, that's going to go a long way because I think most people are picking Canelo are picking him because of the physicality. And I think that's a big thing. I do. Physicality plays a lot bigger part in boxing than some people think. It really does, even though you need skill and you have to know how to fight. And Canelo can do that. That's what I want to see, how Crawford reacts to some of them big shots. And remember, he doesn't have to punch hard enough to knock Canelo out, but he
No.
can punch hard enough to get his respect. Where if Canelo just that little bit doesn't come in and thinks about it or hesitates for a second, then that's favored for Crawford.
Okay, it's a 12-round fight. Do you see stamina coming into play here? I mean, it could be a boxing match for 12 rounds. I don't see stamina coming into effect. But if it's a
No,
12-round physical fight with Canelo pouring that early pressure on, trying to bang the body, banging the arms, really just landing, leaving impressions on Crawford. Maybe for the first 6, 7, 8, Crawford will be there. But now, remember, nobody's ever beaten on him. Maybe he will slow
that's a good
down.
point.
So
That's a good
I,
point.
I think you could make many different points in this. How many times have we ever seen, and I can't think of any, where Crawford, where Canelo rather gets repeatedly tagged by a jab where his eye begins to blow up. And remember, he's a right-hander. When he gets tagged, a lot of times it's around the left eye, and he's going to be running into that right jab, which is owned by a guy who's got one of the very best jabs maybe in the history of boxing.
He's got a great, Crawford has a great jab. You're right about that.
Yeah.
I've seen Canelo gassed. I've never seen Crawford gassed, but if the fight is a slugfest, that might take more out of Crawford than it does Canelo. That's why we want to see the fight, Randy. It's just such a great fight. There are so many things that you can latch onto and look at. And the other thing that I think people are forgetting is because Bud isn't much of a personality and he really doesn't talk a lot, I think they misunderstand how much legacy means to him. And I said before he fought Spence, I said this could be Crawford's best fight. This could be his March 8th, 71 fight because everybody says, well, he hasn't fought anybody. His record's not that good. They can't say that after this fight. And I think he's looking at legacy. And he's even said, if I beat Canelo, I got to go down as one of the greats. And Randy, if he does beat Canelo, he's automatically in that upper tier of the all-time greats, at least as a welterweight.
I was just going to follow up and ask you that. Okay, I've heard him say that. What do you think? Should he win this fight anyway? Decision, stoppage, cuts, you name it. His hand is raised at the end of the fight. Is he an all-time great? When I say all-time, maybe say top 15 in that area. Remember the guy.
You mean pound for pound?
Pound for pound, whatever that term means.
Okay. If he beats Canelo, and it's not a bad decision, he clearly beats him like Bivol beat him.
Yeah.
I would put him as a welterweight. I'd rank him in the top 5. And pound for pound, Randy, I'd have to look at that. But to me, if he beats Canelo convincingly, then he's, as a welterweight, he's behind Robinson, Leonard, Walker, and Hearns. I would make him a favorite over anybody else who won the title. And I'll be honest with you, if he goes through Canelo, I'm not sure that Leonard or Hearns definitely beat him. I'd make them the favorite, but he's in that conversation.
You know, that's a very good point because I thought that Sugar Ray Leonard is probably the greatest of my day, sitting ringside, covering fight after fight after fight since the late 60s. Sugar Ray Leonard was
all that and then some.
Yeah. I mean, I saw him at his worst. Look, I'm not even counting the Camacho fight, a fight that he shouldn't have taken.
Oh, he looked terrible before he even threw a punch.
He had a torn calf muscle that he was taking cortisone for. He shouldn't have been in the ring that day. And
he wasn't even training. He was in Atlantic City. He didn't even train. He worked out for 2 rounds.
I was actually considering taking out a class action lawsuit that it was such a phony that we all knew in the game that Sugar Ray Leonard had an injured calf muscle. I thought it wasn't. When the bell rang, I knew that we weren't going to see the old Sugar Ray Leonard dancing. And it had been about 7 years before that when he had his last fight, his previous fight. It was when I was commissioner in New York when he fought Terry Norris. I convinced him to fight at Madison Square Garden. And I thought that there were flashes of brilliance, but he lost the fight, and deservedly so. And who would have thought that 7 years down the road, he's going to be doing it again? So, but forget that. The Sugar Ray Leonard who existed before Terry Norris.
Between 79 and 81.
Oh, my God.
Was off the chart.
Yes, totally off. You know, I was watching some of his early professional fights. I was watching the fight in November 1979 when Benitez to take the title. And Benitez was a great fighter that night.
Undefeated.
Yeah. And
yep. 3-time champ.
Oh my God.
3 weight. Yeah. 2 division champ, but the youngest champ ever.
Yeah. And the stuff he did was just unbelievable. Benitez could stand in front of you
and make you miss without moving his legs.
Exactly. He would plant his feet In fact, one day at Madison Square Garden, he said to me, when I get off the stool, I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna show you around where I move and the guy can't hit me. And also he looked over me and I'm sitting at ringside and he looks at me and I said, okay, this is gonna be the round. He did this. Bang, moved his head back and forth, up and down, and block shots. Nothing landed. It was like the story that we heard about Willie Pep winning a round without throwing a punch. Well, this is Wilfred Benitez doing that, telling me that he's going to do it.
Wow.
That's how great he was. And Sugar Ray Leonard, when he went out, and I wasn't sure that the Sugar Man was going to win that night.
I had no doubt he was going to win.
Well, I thought that over a 15-round fight, he would find a way to win, but I wasn't definite about that. And
I never picked against Prime Leonard one time.
Never?
You know, it's funny. Never. I until he fought Norris, it's the first time I picked against him because I thought he made a mistake in going down to 54 because I thought he gave up a lot of his advantages because he's fighting another guy who had some power that could box and was much fresher. Camacho, I knew that was a joke, but I was going to say to you, there are 2 times before a fight where I saw a guy, and this has only happened 2 times in my life, where I watched the guy in the ring, in the corner, shadow boxing before the start of the fight. And before the fight, before they even had their robes off, I said to my buddies, I said, this is not going to go good. And the favorite and the big name in the fight is going to get slaughtered. One of them was Leonard and Camacho. As soon as Leonard got in the ring, tried to move around, I knew he had nothing. And the other one was Evander Holyfield and James Toney. I told my buddies, I said, Holyfield doesn't even look like he knows how to hold his hands in the corner. Tony's going to just pepper him. And that's what happened.
To me, Evander in that fight was almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe disinterested, overconfident, fighting the smaller guy who has some weight on him and everything.
But he was an empty package. He had nothing.
Yeah.
Just like Leonard had nothing for Camacho. And you know what? You could make a case. Holyfield, we agree about Leonard. I started following boxing in 64. I could make a case that Leonard's the best fighter of my lifetime. And, if I had to name 5 of them, Holyfield might be in there too. I think that much of him between what he did at cruiser and heavyweight. Speaking of which, and I didn't do this to do the transition, but there's a fighter out there who I call the Bachelor. I don't know if you know that or not, but I nicknamed Alexander Usyk the Bachelor maybe 5 years ago. And I call him the Bachelor because you remember there used to be a show on TV.
Yeah.
And everybody loves the Bachelor. So I call Usyk the Bachelor. Now, in hindsight, Usyk is all that. And I believe he'll retire undefeated. He's 25-0 now or 24-0 with 15 knockouts.
Right.
I think he'll fight 2 more times and he'll win. So he'll be 27-0. He'll be 8 or 9-0 in heavyweight title fights, 5-0 in cruiserweight fights. Randy, I really think if that's the case, that when we do our all-time argument, you're going to have Ali, Lewis, Foreman, Holmes, maybe Lennox Lewis. After that, Usyk's going to be in the conversation with Holyfield, Frazier, Tyson, the Klitschko's, Fury. I mean, if we're still, maybe Jack Dempsey or whatever, but I do think that if he retires undefeated, he might crack that top 10 because he'll check all the boxes. He matches up with everybody stylistically. He showed he can beat big guys that weigh 270 pounds, and he showed he can box. You're not sure of his chin?
He could take it.
From what we've seen, he can take it. I'll tell you who I'd love to see him fight, but it could never happen. In the history of boxing, there have been four great swarmers: Dempsey, Marciano, Frazier, and Tyson. David Tua could have been, but he fell short because he never learned how to fight, how to cut the ring off and slip the jab. So there's been four. I think Tyson and Frazier, because of their style, and Usyk has never fought anybody like that because none of those guys are around anymore. I think they could give him trouble because they could attack him, come in low, work his body, cut the ring off, and force him to fight where he can't pick his spots like he can with these big guys.
I agree with you there. I think that, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I think between Frazier and Mike Tyson, I think Frazier might have the easier time with Usyk because Mike
Tyson would get discouraged after the fourth round.
That's the word I was about to throw out, discouraged. He would get discouraged because he ain't walking out there and blowing Usyk out of there. And if Joe would come out and throw, and if Usyk was still
might lose the first couple rounds. So what?
So what? Right. He's going to keep
like he did with Ali.
Exactly. He's going to hit him on the arms. He's going to hit him on the side. He's going to hit him everywhere you can hit him. And I think it would go rounds. And I think that Joe would be the guy to finally break down, maybe not even stop him, but I think win enough rounds in the fight, in a very interesting fight. I do think that Usyk is a warrior. And you know, when I think about him, I got to count up, I think he's only had 8 heavyweight fights, and one of them.
Exactly, 8. 6 title fights, Chisora and Witherspoon.
Witherspoon. So he's had 7 real heavyweight fights, and we're putting him in the top 10 or so. And I think he deserves it. Look, twice he's beaten Fury, twice he's beaten Anthony Joshua, and twice he has now beaten Dubois in a fight where some people said, you know what? He got decked in that fight. He got lucky in that fight. Well, the second fight, he came back and he used that brilliant boxing IQ of his, and he took Dubois apart.
Randy, I told Jack for a month before the fight, every night we did the show, I said, it'll be easier this time for Usyk. I said, I do think he was hurt by that body shot, and maybe he caught a break there with the rest. Yeah. This fight will be no contest, and it wasn't.
Yeah, let me talk about that body shot for a second, because there are people who say to me, "Oh, come on, the referee was right. That was a low blow." No, it wasn't.
I agree.
What is a low blow? When a guy has his trunks up and the referee will say, "Okay, put it right at your belly button here." Now, anything where you might see the name of the trunks, the name of the trunk is Frank. So the company is Frank, and right on or your name is on there. You can hit below that. It's basically your waistline. And if I said to you, stand up, put your hands on your hips, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm standing up. I'm going to put my hands on my hips. My trunks would be up to here with my nameplate on it, and here are my hips considerably below there. You got to know where that hip line is, and that landed below the lettering of the belt, but above,
but not low.
That was a body shot that dropped him. But because Usyk is so bright, he looks at the referee. He sees that the referee calls it a low blow, and he goes, "You know what? I'm hurt." He's calling it a low blow. Well, now that it's a low blow, I get up to 5 minutes rest, and I'm going to take those 5 minutes, and he did.
And he dominated after that.
He got off the deck, finished that round, and with that, Dubois almost, I don't know about almost, I think he did lose heart. In the very next round, he gets stunned.
It's funny you said that, because I had said at the time, it was almost as if when he didn't get the stoppage there and Usyk got up and hit him back, it was like the life was sucked out of him. It's like, oh, that was my shot to win. Now I'm not going to win. And it seems to me that he almost succumbed mentally before physically.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. And I haven't wanted to say it that loud, but it's what I believe. I really like Dubois. I like the way he handles himself, everything about him. But the fact is, every fighter who steps through those ropes has a certain amount of what is it? Everybody's got heart, but take an Ali, take a Joe Frazier. Those kind of guys had more heart than anybody I've ever been around. Sugar Ray Leonard, the same thing.
Yes.
Just loaded with heart. And they proved it. Daniel Dubois and everybody else who goes in the ring, you might suffer that broken eye socket. I've never had a broken eye socket, but I hear the pain is excruciating. And there's only so much pain a fighter can take before he says, you know what, I'm going to fight another day. Tonight, it's over. But Dubois, again, doesn't have that Joe Frazier heart. So
that's what separates the greats from the near greats.
When you have to deliver on it, not just hit a guy in the chin and knock him out, but when that guy is taking the shot, getting off the floor, coming back, putting it on you, and making you dig down, are you able to dig down? And there are not a lot of guys out there who could dig down after looking like they're going to be on top. Here comes the victory, and now the guy comes storming back and has you on the verge of defeat. So
every time I'm put in that mindset where I have to think of a fighter like that, I'm going to give you one of the best examples, and I know you'll agree.
Arturo Gatti.
What round was it? Pardon me?
Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward.
Okay, those guys are there, but this is a little bit higher level. How about the 11th, or was it the 10th or the 11th round when Riddick Bowe had Holyfield almost out on his feet, and Holyfield Holyfield came back, and at the end of the round he was beating the heck out of Bowe. It was like, okay, that's what you want. Okay, you just woke me up. It's like Holyfield, the courage and that comeback, what he summoned to come back in that fight after that round when he was falling all over the place. And by the end of the round, he was beating the hell out of Bowe. Now, you want to talk about a guy you can't take his confidence? Holyfield's that guy.
He had the same thing happen against Bert Cooper. Bert Cooper not only just rung his bell for a moment.
The ropes kept Holyfield up.
It looked like Bert Cooper was going to win that fight. How Holyfield, if you ever go back and watch that, you say, how in the world does he finish that finish? How does he come back from that? That's Evander.
Holyfield was as tough physically and mentally as anybody we've seen. I mean, he had Ali Frazier toughness. And I had always said to my friends this was back in the late 80s when him and Tyson were on the collision course. And they always said they fear Tyson more. I says, I fear Holyfield more for the fact Tyson's probably going to catch me and maybe stop me. But I could get lucky, hit him, and take his confidence away, because we've seen that happen 4 or 5 times in his career. I could bring a crowbar in the ring and hit Holyfield, and unless I kill him, he's not going to stop coming at me.
Yeah. Very few guys that I've ever seen have that kind of boxing mentality, that Carmen Basilio attitude, where you got to peel my face off. I'm still going to be there as long as there's a breath in me. And to me, I spent my announcing years, and I made a lot of I got a lot of sparring partners for young Mike Tyson. What he was the most, I think, exciting fighter that I've ever seen. But he was somewhat of a front runner, I think, as we've seen.
He was, not somewhat, he was.
And if he should be listening to this, and next time I see him, he's going to say, you thought I was a front runner? Well, Mike, to me, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson was a very physical fighter, and he didn't mind throwing that hook.
Oh, and hitting you on the hips, hitting you low on the break, the arm bars. He did it all.
Right. Look, I was working with Francois Botha when Tyson tried to break his arm, and I heard this was a plan of Tyson. I had heard somebody from Tyson's camp called me the day before the fight and said that Tyson is going to try to do this. He talked about it. So I called Mark Ratner, who was then the head of the Nevada Commission.
Right.
And I said, Mark, I got it on good notice that Mike Tyson is going to try to break Francois Botha's arm. Do I have your permission to tell Francois, should this happen, retaliate? And Mark said, I'm going to tell the referee, Richard Steele, this. I'm going to give you one chance. It happens once, and sure enough, all hell breaks loose, and everybody is emptying into the ring. I started up on the ring apron, and then I said, what am I doing? I'm going to jump in there with all these big, I stayed at ringside. And I looked across the ring. Mark Ratner looks at me, holds up one finger, meaning that's your one chance. That's it. And then order was restored. But Botha was ready for that arm twist. And he said, if he does it to me, I'm going to try to throw him over the ropes. But I mean, Tyson was a dirty fighter. And when he fought Evander Holyfield and tried to do it to Evander, and then Evander
He got it back.
Gave it back to him, it was like, you know, when you tease your little brother, like I used to tease my little brother. One day when my brother teased me when I was about 11 years old, and my younger brother was teasing me, and I was, Dad, Jerry's teasing me. And he said, Randy, if you can't take it, don't dish it out. And that's exactly, Tyson dished it out to the wrong person, and Evander Holyfield got him back. And then, of course, came the second fight where Tyson was so pissed off that he decided to have an ear munch, a double ear munch.
You know what? Because, but before I touch on that, it's funny though. You worked the Botha fight, and that's probably one of the best punches Tyson ever landed. That right hand to stop him. I mean, that was one of the prettiest right hands you could. I mean, he stepped into that thing. Beautiful shot, and one of the rare times that Tyson came back, because Botha was handling him pretty good.
And we were telling.
I thought I had him up 4-zip. What round did that fight end? The fourth or the fifth?
Fifth. And we were telling Botha, take him deeper.
It was 4-zip.
Playing around. He was playing around. He was talking to him. He was playing with him. And we said, not now. Just keep your wits about you. Take him deeper and deeper. He's not ready for this kind of fight. But he got overconfident, drops his hands, walks into the best shot that Tyson maybe ever threw with that right hand.
That's the best right hand he ever threw. No doubt about it.
And how hard was it? In the dressing room, Botha looked at me and he said, Randy, why did they stop this fight? And I
really?
Said, and we called him Buffalo. I said, Buffalo, you got knocked down. He said, I wasn't down. And I looked at his father. I looked at Sterling McPherson, his manager. We knew what we heard. And we said, you're right there. That shows you don't even remember getting hit with that right hand.
I remember. Do you remember when Frazier fought Ellis the first time? And they asked Ellis at the press conference. He thought he was down once, and he was down twice. And Dundee said, see, that's why I stopped the fight.
And look, when Ken Norton got knocked out by Jerry Cooney, somebody at the press conference afterwards, when Norton was announcing his retirement, they said, how hard does Jerry Cooney punch? He said, I don't know. I don't remember a thing. You guys saw it. You tell me.
You know what's ironic about that fight too, Randy? Cooney stopped. He killed Norton in 55 seconds 54. On May 11th of 81.
Right.
And May 11th of 77, Norton beat Bobic in 56 seconds. In the same ring too, right?
Same ring. And as a matter of fact, what's funny, Ken Norton was a real womanizer, and he went after Jerry Quarry's wife, very pretty.
We got about 50 seconds left. Tell the story. I know it. It's a good one. Go.
And he went after Charlie Quarry. Jerry Quarry hated Norton for that. And he went over to Jerry Cooney the night that he was fighting Norton and said, do me a favor. Would you slaughter him for me? I owe him one. And after Jerry did it, Jerry Quarry came in his dressing room and said, thank you for doing that. Still thought
Quarry said that to Cooney?
Quarry said that to Cooney. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, that's great. I think I remember you telling me that story before. That's a great story. Yeah, Norton was a guy, Randy, I never was crazy about. I interviewed him a couple times. He couldn't have been nicer. But back when he was fighting, I thought he was a little condescending.
Yeah.
And I thought Larry Holmes kind of nailed it when he said he made a career out of fighting an old Ali. We are out of time.
Oh, man.
I had a blast. As always, I'm sure we'll be doing this again. And all I can say, buddy, is thanks for coming on. Love you.
got it. Canelo and Crawford 1 month away.
All right, brother. Be good.
Thanks for having me.